Hi, everyone. Welcome to Module 13. I know it's been a long semester, but you're almost done. And I just want to say how much I appreciate all of your hard work. And we're almost finished and we'll get through this. So this week is broken up into two parts, obviously, as all in every module. So the first part, we focus in on the Gilmore Commission. The Gilmore Commission, the formal name for it is it's the advisory panel to assess domestic and response capabilities for terrorism, evolving weapons of mass destruction. Okay, got that out. Now you know why it's called the Gilmore Commission. So it identified that the readiness of not subjected to what may or may not be happening in the geopolitical climate. We tend to let our guards down. So think of it this way. There was no pandemic back in 2018, but the executive branch of the government closed down the Asian kind of pandemic response system. There was no foresight in that. And I'm not blaming the Trump administration, yes or no. The fact is that they closed it down in 2018. And then in 2019, they pulled the one member that was remaining in Wuhan out. And then 2020, we have a pandemic. They're not connected in any way, but this is why the Gilmore Commission, not why, but this is an example of why the Gilmore Commission specifically identified that there should not be the readiness capabilities of state and local governments should not be hinged on whether or not there's terrorist attacks occurring in the United States or abroad. It was to make sure that local and state governments were prepared regardless of what was happening. That was one facet of it. The other thing is that it focused in on specific items of containment, commitment to resources for local and state government, sharing of information across at a national level, preparing readiness, all readiness for state and local governments. This would include, say, mobile command units that were distributed equally across the Commonwealth. The Mass State Police has one, the Worcester County Sheriff's Department has one, and Springfield has one, Boston has one. Essex County has a smaller one. The Mass State Police in the Northeast has a smaller one. But these were designed, funded, and grant funded in the case they were needed for a multi-agency response to a critical incident. And a critical incident could be anything from a mass shooter to a terrorist attack. But we needed these in place, and they needed to be maintained, and they needed to be people that were incident commanders that were assigned to them, that trained on them on a regular basis. So when we look at, say, NEMLAC, your regional SWAT team for the Northeast, my area has SEMLAC. It's the exact same thing, but it's just mine's in the Worcester County, Southern Worcester County area. In Northern Essex, it falls in that Northeast region, which they have NEMLAC. NEMLAC is a critical response SWAT team, essentially, that trains regularly. They're made up of police officers from area towns, the Sheriff's Department, and the Mass State Police. And they're there to be ready. It's the readiness part of the Gilmore Commission. Another element that the commission focused in on was increased research and training of officers. We tend to say that we know so much about Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Few people understand the connections between the IRA and Boston, or even more, Sharenko and in LA, in how these organizations operate here in the United States on a funding basis versus actually planning attacks. The IRA would never attack anything in Boston. It's just unheard of. That's where they receive most of their funding, is through Irish bars and Irish nightclubs. So it's understanding this intricacy of these security threat groups, terrorist organizations, and how law enforcement investigates them, and research and training officers on what to look for. So that was another element. And the final element, and one of the most important, is the protection of national infrastructures. I'm sure that you've seen, some of you may have seen the last Die Hard movie where the protagonist of the movie goes in and takes over the complete infrastructure. I believe if it was Washington, D.C., meaning the electric, the water, street lights, 911 services. It basically crippled the city, making it so that, and I think it was called a yard sale in the movie. And the idea was to cripple it to the point that people wouldn't get the EMS services. They wouldn't get police services. They couldn't turn their lights on. Street lights didn't work, so it caused gridlock. This is our infrastructure, and if it collapses, we collapse with it. Our society goes from a first world to a third world country in a blink of an eye. And just imagine what life would have been like under COVID without the internet. We wouldn't get any shopping done. Stores had already started to close well before COVID came in. Toys R Us, just to name one popular store, shut down because they couldn't keep up with stores like Amazon. So imagine if that we were not able to access things online because a terrorist organization had crippled our internet capabilities. So this is part of the Gilmore Commission is reinforcing that in making sure that our infrastructure is in place. Another possibility could be contaminating our fresh water supply. Again, stopping traffic control, air control, so many other different things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. So the second part of this week it really forced me to reinvestigate or re-look at the assignment. The previous assignment had to do with the terrorism research analysis consultorium. I was under the impression that the information available on that website was going to be available to us at zero cost. I cannot have students pay for things. So I had to redesign the assignment. So we're going to be looking at a case study. And I really want you to look at the different types of intelligence investigation and what technologies are used in the intelligence apparatus when investigating terrorism. This could include uses of wiretap, meta and metadata collection, imagery intelligence, signal intelligence, open source intelligence, a variety of other different types of intelligence. So when you're doing this assignment, in the case study, I'm asking you to look at what specific types of technologies are being used. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we're almost done. Hang in there.